is likely you know the feeling. You come home, your child says, "Nobody plays with me," or you see them on a playground with their peers and they seem to just not connect with anybody, or they seem to be alienated. We all want our kids to feel included and accepted, but it feels like sometimes the world doesn't quite know how to make room for these differences. Well, luckily for us today, we're joined by Mandy, who is an autistic advocate who's helping schools, families, and communities build bridges between neurodivergent and neurotypical kids. During this episode, we're going to talk about what true inclusion looks like, how peers can become allies and friends, and what small actions parents can take to help their children become understood. This is a second part of our short series with Mandy, and it's all about creating kindness, connection, and confidence for every child. Welcome to the Autism Family Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Keene from Peer Hearts Therapy. Today, we're going to dive into one common challenge that parents share a lot is helping their child feel included. Our guest again today is Mandy, and she's back with us to talk about how peers can be better advocates for their autistic friends. She'll share some real stories and practical ways both families and educators can nurture empathy and inclusion. Let's go ahead and get started. And welcome, Mandy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and I hope to at least share a little bit of helpful information today.
Awesome. We had you on last episode, and last episode was really learning more about you and a little bit of your experiences and what you're doing now. And for the people who don't know, you identify as autistic and you're doing a lot of great advocacy work. And let's go ahead and just go further into that. We'll start off with just a general question. When we think about the word inclusion, what does that mean to you?
So I always hear this example of it's not just like saying someone can sit at the table, it's wanting them to be there, that their presence is needed, that there is a void when it is there. Like, not just getting like, oh, we should invite them out because that's the right thing to do. But no, they should be there. They're part of our group and embracing their personalities and meeting people where they're at.
I love that, meeting people where they're at. I think that's huge. How do you with that topic, like you said, wanting people to be there more than just like we should do the right thing. Where do you think that comes from? How does that happen?
I think that, like, I have a theory that the next steps for inclusion is online. And I think that there's a new whole generation of kids and young adults that see past that. Like, their stories about, like, oh, my kid was hospital homebound and he had no friends. And then they find out he had a whole loving community life and had a girlfriend online. And people, when they're just talking online, they don't see that. And so that's a way to starting that conversation is that people are already not seeing them physically to judge those physical appearances. So I guess just slowly shifting the conversation away and more valuing what the enjoying time with each other.
Okay. To me, it almost kind of sounds like what you're saying is almost like a little bit of like a strength based, or instead of seeing like the negatives, we see the positive in people, right? Or like the things we can relate to, regardless, of who you come from, what man, woman, ethnicities, just kind of how we can relate to each other. Is that kind of thought?
Yes, and when I think of inclusion, there's one organization that comes to mind that made me be public about being autistic in the first place is called Penguin Project. And they do musical theater for particularly kids with special needs, but they also allow adults to do it once or twice. And they have like an organization for adults after that. And in that Penguin Project, like this year, we're doing the Little Mermaid Junior and we do peer mentors. So they get one on one, someone doing their part with them and encouraging them. And so I've been doing one on one peer mentoring with a kid with Down syndrome, and it's been life changing. And, there's different personalities in there of, like flamboyant people all out, and I'm just quiet and so is he, and so we just vibe together, and I'm like, I never did anything theater related, but he helped me come out of my shell being able to do it, and just seeing everyone, no matter regardless of their level of ability, just getting to participate and everyone just being happy about it. It was a different environment that I've never seen.
I love that. It almost sounds like, kind of like when you find your tribe, right? Like helping people find uh other people they can relate to or have similar interests. Is that kind of like how that felt for you in that environment? Like, hey, we get each other sometimes?
Absolutely, and I'm more, like, outwardly shy, and so people would be coming up and hugging me, and I was just so touched by that because I get shy when I don't know what to do in an environment, but that was helping me feel at ease.
Mm.
And this is a program that's across the country, Penguin Project, and I think that is so cool how they're making such an impact on people's lives.
That's really awesome. Tell me a little more about Penguin Project because this I've never heard of it. So, can you give me a little bit more insight into that?
So they do like the Broadway musicals, and they do once a year. Like for example, we'll be doing like 6 months, a few rehearsals, and then they'll have their dress rehearsal weeks. And it's completely like volunteer based, and they have like a lot of their volunteers come from their main musical section for this particular branch, but like they have people like me who come and volunteer just for Penguin Project. It's a modified version of the Broadway plays
Hmm.
to be a junior version, so it's more, digestible, but it's still like the same songs, of course. It's basically providing community access to theater and, it's giving them abilities to participate in life experiences.
I love that, and it's definitely like a platform too, right? That may not have been available otherwise, huh?
Absolutely, and it's giving people aspirations, like one girl who's done it wants to do professional Broadway, and she's just gonna keep pushing for it, and, I believe in her.
That's too cool. Hopefully, she gets it. That'd be great. All right, so we kind of touched a little bit about like what you got going on, and I guess the next question I want to ask is, parents, they want the best for their child. How can parents or teachers or anyone advocate for their kid or their child without making it forceful or awkward? The idea that comes to my head is sometimes I've seen like those videos where the parents come in and they say, "Hey, this is my son, and this is how his brain's different, and this and that." Which for some people that might work well. For others, it might be a little bit too much. So, how can peers advocate? Do you think it's just peer education? Is it more to it? How do you feel about that?
So, I think you can also advocate by how you communicate with them in public, like, if you're at an open house or something, maybe however you interact with the child and be like, "Oh, maybe you could do something like this." But I think a big thing, no matter the age, people like to like discount thoughts because they're children, but you should respect what the child is saying just as much as an adult's words, because like, especially when talking about feelings
Mhm.
and like intensity of emotions, you have to give them that space to work through it. I think we talked a little bit about that the last time is just they process it differently and giving them that space, believe their lived experience over any stereotypes. And when you're talking about like talking to a teacher, I think it's great. Communication is better than nothing. And, you can always do a little more than a little less. And just working with them from there, maybe they can come back to you and say, hey, like, I didn't see this as much, but did you ever realize this is happening? And I think that's like, that concern shows that you're a caring parent from the beginning.
Can you think about maybe a situation that you've seen, experienced, or witnessed in your life that would be like a good example of this?
Advocating for, like, this guy's advocating for his daughter's IEP to be enforced properly, and just having conversations with the teachers and trying to understand where she's at, and, seeing and then, like, they're debating, like, recalling an IEP meeting. Being on top of it is really what's important because, you know what I mean? They know they're gonna be there for those services and make sure and hold them accountable for that.
Okay, so like instead just going through the motions of like boom, checking a block, just really making sure you're understanding what's going on in the IEP and really, like you said, understanding your child by listening to him and says, hey, you know what? He doesn't do good in loud environments. Can he be taken out of classroom for fire alarms? Or can he, what I mean, really advocating for your child? Is that kind of where we're going with this? Is really just instead of being a passive, person in the IEP process, maybe just being active and more vocal?
Yes, and also I just saw someone had said that they're a special education teacher, but they took off work to go and shadow in their child's classroom because they were saying that the child had just behavior issues.
Mm.
And she went and she's like, "Oh my god, this is the most boring lecture I've ever sat through." She's like, "No wonder these kids like these kids there's no interaction and like the IP like like more individualized learning." And so I'm like, I commented, "I'm proud of you for taking that initiative because most people don't." And just that's a big thing is like, you believe your child and you also believe the school, but you find the facts out for yourself too.
Mm. I love that example. That is really good. Yeah, because then you get the real story, right? There's always, a few sides to every story and different perspectives, but you being there, you'd be like, oh, maybe he does do this. Or you might be the opposite. It's like, oh, well, maybe the environment is a horrible match for my child. And maybe we could better fit this. All right. My next question for you. What do you feel like might be some common misconceptions when it comes to friendships and making friends that maybe society has?
So I'll get right into that. Is some of us don't even know what a friend is.
Mhm.
That is me, for example. What my biggest thing on my autism diagnosis is that Mandy does not know the difference between an acquaintance and a friend. And that's something I still struggle with to this day. It's not something I'm gonna probably ever truly figure out compared to other people's logic, but that's something to understand is I talk to everyone like they're my best friend. Like, I mean, that's also helps me be able to talk outwardly like this. But another common misconception is that we relate to people too quickly, or like you're talking about something really heavy, and instead of really sitting in that weight, we jump in and talk about something that we experienced along those lines. That's that's how we relate. The empathy. We're like, I can feel you on that. And a lot of people consider that rude. And
Mm,
that no, we're definitely not trying to be rude. Really just supporting differences. Like for me is I have a little bit of vocal dysregulation. So when I get really comfortable or excited or passionate, I can talk really loud and like fast and just being like, "Hey," it's like just like something small would make me so appreciative. Like, I mean, everyone's different, I'm sure, but to me, I would appreciate it because if I'm in public and I'm talking loud and everyone's looking at me and I have to find that out for myself, it's really embarrassing. And it happens all the time. And but the times that people do that, I'm so thankful. But those are just some things that came to mind when you said that.
so that last part you're saying, like, maybe just getting the key little cues from friends or family where it is like, "Hey, you might be a little loud because you might not be aware of it."
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, just ask me politely once, and I promise it will happen. Like, but people forget that. They're like, "Oh, she's just being loud," or this, that, and I'm like, "This, it hasn't changed. It's still the same thing."
It's like respectful communication. I do wanna ask, kinda going back a little bit, when you said, like, difference between a friendship and an acquaintance, tell me what for your personal experience, maybe what you think the definition of or what you've heard other people say it is, because that I mean, I think for most people, sometimes the lines do get blurred. I got some friends and I got family, but some of my friends are kind of considered family, and then is yeah, I want to hear your perspective.
It's something I still think about all the time, and acquaintance would probably be someone you just know, never hang out with.
Hmm.
You maybe have like one or two good conversations, but that's probably it. And then a friend would be someone that you probably could call up or hang out with in person. But that's still tough. Like, and it's also like trusting people. And
Mm.
because a lot of people aren't caring as I am. Like I look at what people do in this world. I'm like, I could never in a million years. And that's what a lot of, autistic people are, especially with that high sense of justice. And I also struggle with keeping friends. I'm a goody two shoes. So like I don't if they do something, you know what I mean? I'm like I cut off people sometimes. And it was really hard for me to for over the years to understand like the concept of cutting someone off devastated me. But then I've learned that I need to do that for my own protection. 'cause I also know, like, I care a lot, and I care way too much, and that it's better to cut you need to cut off some people sometimes if they're not gonna improve or you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's real. I think a lot of people can relate to that. My thought that comes to my mind is, do you think when we're working with individuals, like teaching healthy boundaries is probably a good skill to know, that kind of helps with that because, like you said, there's certain people in your life who may not be good for you, and it doesn't mean you got to cut them off completely, but maybe you just limit it.
I'm so glad you said that because, like, my big passion is, sexual violence with autistic adolescents. And one thing I've stated is that I had to learn what abuse was for myself. I had to understand what harassment was. No one taught me that.
Mm,
I was getting abused and harassed for years before I realized what that was. And imagine if I had known that when I was 12 years old and how much that could have changed my life.
right.
And that's so like you said, that's very important is teaching those healthy, safe boundaries. Like people are not allowed to talk to you like that. They're not allowed to threaten to hurt themselves if you don't do this for them. Like stuff like that seems very believable. And it really devastated me back then. And I got put in a lot of situations I wish I wouldn't have been put in for stuff like that. And just teaching healthy boundaries at that age would have made a huge difference.
Based off your experience, let's throw a number out there. How early do you think we should be teaching like these healthy boundaries to kids? I know it's going to look different at different age group, but how early do you think parents should jump on that?
Like, the as simple as, like, the no square as young is always good, but, like, formalized healthy boundaries, I think, would be middle school age. Just so, like, as you're teaching health and you're teaching sex ed in middle school, you should be teaching boundaries along with it.
I like that. That's huge. I think I can relate to that as well. I'm still learning through my own process of setting healthy boundaries with certain friends and family, and it's not something I agree that is prioritized, or necessarily taught in certain ways. And it's very interesting that you say it's like, to me, I guess what I'm hearing is like you just thought like, hey, being harassed is just normal, or like just okay is kind of what you were
Absolutely.
thinking. Yeah.
I mean, my dad was not kind about to my mother, unlike they divorced, and he was always very degrading of her, and I'm a bigger woman, and he would make fun of big women in my presence.
Mm,
So this is like they always say, like the type of man that your father is you're gonna seek out. He used to talk that badly. Like it really does all add up. People, it's not a cliche. It's real life.
gotcha. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Thank you for sharing that and being open with that. So my next question is, we all are diverse in our own ways, but some people would be considered maybe more neurotypical, some people be more neurodivergent, or it seems more obvious they're neurodivergent. For the people who fall in that neurotypical, who want to be a better ally for their neurodivergent peers, how do you think they could best support them and be a better ally?
I think just like understanding it and the movements, just like anyone else, there's like any other movement, like they just educating and being an ally is always important. And keeping up to date with like what neurodivergence is, or like using the identity first language, and like everything else, just like respect everyone else's autonomy. I like a big thing is just people lead by example.
Mm,
Like there was a big like in movies, and they say like if you're like with someone like and they're like they look like more disabled, they may just try and talk to you versus them, and you say
mm,
no, talk to them, like
mhm.
reinforcing that type of stuff.
I love that example for sure. And I also love the idea of just kind of like leading with kindness. And one thing I will say about this younger generation that I've noticed is my generation and older generations, they're a little bit more mean and more bullies, but I feel like kids are more accepting and more open than ever before. And that's one thing that I feel like is beautiful about this really young generation. You're still going to have bullies no matter what, but I do feel like, accepting people for who they are is a huge, you see it more often, which I think is great. Big picture, we're gonna go ahead and close out this episode. Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't talked about in this overall topic for just how we can be better advocates for our autistic friends, family, or just, anyone who's autistic?
I think helping them find the resources and seeing where their capacity at is with that type of stuff is really important. Like, for example, here in Florida, we have card and like you can register with them, like and you send them, like, I had to send them my official autism paperwork, and like I'm a member with them for life now. Is like maybe nudging those type of applications in a respectful way, like, "Hey, this exists, and maybe you could find some use in it. All you have to do is apply." And, like, then that's a huge resource for them. I think that's huge, and I think there is something like that in most states right now.
I love that. That's a great, great perspective because I even just think about like, I just try to think universally with my thoughts. But like, if I someone's black and there's like, hey, there's these scholarships and stuff out there. I don't think that's it, the meaning, right? It's just let them know, hey, there's resources out there. So same thing. Hey, there's these resources. There's these groups. Take it with a grain of salt. You don't have to do it, but I'm letting you know they're out here because maybe they might not know, right?
And also offering with the application, because I know a lot of people get fatigued with all the applications of things.
Mm.
I think that would give a lot of reassurance, or even just knowing that you're there if they needed to call you with a question about it. Or at this point, AI will help you with these applications.
That
But
is true. So I guess what I hear it is like not only just letting them know about the resources, but like, hey, if you need help for this application process or typing this up or writing this up, I'm here for you.
yeah, for sure, it's like the extra level because, like, the level 2 versus level 1, for example, it says needing additional resources. And that is what I would define as an example of a resource. I'm here to help you go actually follow through with it.
That definitely resonates. I have a client I work with, and anytime we have to, I don't do it anymore. But I was like, hey, just download this app. We'll do this, and it was like a whole ordeal because it was so overwhelming to him. Just so many different layers. One was just his potential information being out there. Another one was just going through the process. So I could imagine with certain people that might be overwhelming and not really something I thought about. You reminded me of that, of why that could be a next level of help. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And one last thing is that I don't know if this has like a name to it or not, is I get really anxious about one thing in particular. Like, for example, back in high school, it was like an essay, and my whole quality of life would go down
Mhm.
because I would not want to do that essay. It's very simple overall, and I'm doing things just as hard or more hard in the meantime, but that one essay I just can't do. And I've had things like that over the even recently that, and it just, I don't know if you've ever heard anything like that, where it's just the one thing holding you back.
Yeah, definitely. Like anxiety is just like it can be debilitating, right? Anxiety be debilitating. Anxiety looks so different for everybody. So yeah, I think we all need support and helping each other through that support, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your insights. It's been great. And thank you for being open and sharing your experiences. On the next episode, our topic will be finding your people, the power of support and community. So essentially building connection, community, and hope for families. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Mandy for being on the show again today. Mandy reminded us that inclusion starts at home. When we model empathy and celebrate differences, our kids learn to do the same. There's a few things that stuck in my head that are actual points that you could use from today's episode. The biggest thing that I think Mandy has made a theme of is really having empathy and understanding your child and letting them have a voice. When we give our children the opportunity to have a voice, they can really become better advocates for themselves. Another thing that stood out in this episode is really teaching healthy boundaries at a young age. I think she said that middle school age was that prime age of teaching healthy boundaries. That way they aren't abused and take advantage of. So teaching healthy boundaries, that's something you can start doing now with your kid, right? And then the third one is providing resources. She mentioned not only providing resources, but also providing guidance and letting them know they feel supported. Whether it's like, hey, how do I download this app? Or hey, can you be there for me for this first support group? So those are all three great things that I took from this episode that I think you could start implementing now as a parent. Well, that wraps up today's episode, but the conversation doesn't stop here. If you got a story to tell, a question you love answered, or a topic you want me to cover, send me a message at info@pureheartstherapy.com or DM us on Instagram at pureheartstherapy. I want this show to reflect what you need most as a parent or caregiver. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to follow, subscribe, and share it with another parent who could use some encouragement this week. Thanks for being a part of the Pure Hearts Therapy family. Together, we're creating a world where every child feels understood.